Good afternoon. I'm Kate Meese. I'm an Associate Director at the Local Government Commission. I'll be providing a brief overview and going over logistics for our webinar, and then I'll turn it over to our speakers for today. This is the 15th webinar we've hosted over the last 3 years through the Statewide Energy Efficiency Collaborative, which is a partnership between LGC, ICLEI, the Institute for Local Government, and the 4 investor-owned utilities. The partnership was established in the 2009 CPUC decision to help cities and counties reduce greenhouse gas emissions and save energy. A little bit about the webinar logistics before we get started. Due to the large number of participants, everyone will be muted for the duration of the webinar. If you have questions at any time during the webinar, please type them in the question box on the control panel window with the name of your speaker your question is intended for and click the send button. If you're having technical difficulties, write IT in the question box followed by the problem you are experiencing. We'll be trying to answer as many questions as possible through the chat function during the presentations. We'll summarize the remaining questions for the speakers during the question and answer portion at the end of each presentation. The presentations from this webinar will be available on our website. We will also be adding a recording of the webinar once it is available, which should be by Monday. When the webinar concludes, you will be asked to complete a short survey. Please take 5 minutes to provide us with input, which will help us improve our future webinars. The focus of this webinar is on new energy programs that impact local governments. We'll be primarily focusing on key elements of the CPUC's decision for 2013-2014 energy efficiency programs, which was adopted on November 8th. We will hear an overview of the decision from Frank, and then we will discuss in more detail the new regional energy networks that will be developed as part of the decision. We'll also hear from Howard and other local government, from Howard about other local government energy opportunities that may be available through Prop 39, the California Clean Energy Jobs Act, and Cap and Trade. We have a lot of exciting new energy programs and opportunities to cover, so without further delay, I will turn it over to our speakers, starting with Frank Spicero, who is responsible for managing the local government and institutional energy efficiency partnerships for the Southern California Gas Company. He is also responsible for developing and implementing their on-bill financing program, as well as being the lead to develop the statewide financing pilots. Frank?
Thanks, Kate. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. Thanks for the introduction, Kate. I'm here, well, I'm going to apologize up front if I stumble a little bit going through this. It's always strange talking to a computer on these webinars. I certainly talk to my computer a lot, but it's usually different things than I'm going to be saying right now. And I did want to acknowledge that I believe this is our largest webinar yet with SEEC. Over 200 folks have signed up, so that's awesome. Thank you guys all very much. Anyway, I'll start diving right in. Under my next slide, what I plan on covering was just to highlight the final decision from the PUC on 2013 and 14. Trying to be specific as I think it might apply to local governments, and where there was a reference to the financing activities, I'll go into a little bit more there. Certainly, or believe most of you certainly are aware that I'm the lead on the financing stuff, so I will do what I can to try to highlight what's there, but the time is a little short, so hopefully the Q&A will be able to figure out whatever we need to. Next slide. As everybody knows, the PUC issued, oops, I lost the slide there for a second, issued a decision a while ago for a transition period, moving from this cycle into the what they wanted to do for longer term, which was determined to be 2015 and beyond. Not even clear that's going to be a 3-year cycle. It likely could be more based on lots of the conversation that occurred. But this slide here on page 3 just kind of highlights the background getting to where we're at right now. Key point, the Commission issued a final decision on November 8th. Next slide, please. By the way, the decision is 148 pages, I believe. I can't cover everything, obviously, in any amount of detail, so I'm going to highlight things. And I apologize if I don't cover anything that somebody thinks was critical, but I'm trying to hit what I think are the highlights for purposes here. certainly the IOU portfolios were approved. There were, of course, some rather significant adjustments. The RENs were also approved with some adjustments. MEA funding was approved with adjustments. And I think critical is certainly here that our local government partnerships and institutional partnerships were also approved, as is actually. And again, there was some reference to the financing budgets. Next slide. I won't go into the details on the funding, but just highlight that we originally had asked for about $2.2 billion for the 2 years. It was a combination of the utility, the REN, and the MEA programs. And the commission, in its final decision, authorized $1.9 million. To get there, we were all having to take some substantive hits in places, certainly also due to some of the limitations on where we're allowed to take those hits. Next slide, please. Okay, high level on the portfolio, what's important is cost effectiveness and how that became a driver of our budgets. A good thing that came out of it is we're allowed to count spillover. I won't define that here, but that definitely helps our cost effectiveness of our portfolio. To get to our budget cuts, they gave us some very specific guidance on how we were to get there. In other words, we're not supposed to touch incentives. We're not to touch the local government partnership programs, et cetera, with some limits to address some areas of concern the commission had on some of our budgets, particularly our DI budgets. They discussed how we're supposed to handle funding. And for those of you local governments that have resource programs by definition where you're actually paying rebates or incentives, I don't think the commission is going to issue their ex-ante estimates until March 1st, if I understood the decision properly. Well, by March 1st. Next slide. Okay, and I won't go into this in detail because we have 2 speakers that are following that are going to go over these programs in quite a bit more detail, but the regional energy networks were approved with some specifics. What I'll note here is that the IOUs, PG&E, Edison, and the gas company, SDG&E, wasn't covered here, are required to contract within 60 days. That actually equates to January 14th that we need to get our contracts in place, and I know down south we're working very hard to get there. The decision laid out our specific roles as the contract managers and what the commission's responsibilities would be, slightly different than other programs that we have. We have a working group, I think, that's coming out of this, and there was some reference to how the financing programs would be coordinated with the larger statewide effort that's going on through the pilot design. Next slide. Energy Upgrade California certainly got a lot of attention in the decision. There's a whole process here working with the RENs as well as the utility programs trying to come up with a redesign to the basic path component, and quite honestly how that hasn't been working and trying to get to something that would. And of course many of you are probably on those teams that are working on coming up with a new product. We have until April 1st to try to come up with that product with a whole process of how we plan on rolling it out. I understand that everybody is working very hard though to do that much sooner than that, so hopefully that'll be the case and we can get moving with the new product much sooner next year than later. I'm not going to go into the details on that. Next slide, please. The commission approved our multifamily rebates program, California Advanced Home Program, residential HVAC programs. I know for down south, I would consider these all to be for our LGPs, things that we would certainly like to get a lot of support in outreaching and marketing these programs. So I think these are the kinds of things that you are very helpful in getting the interest built on these programs. So some changes to them. Again, I'm not going to go into the details, but there were some you might want to look into. Next slide. The integrated demand side management also got some attention where the commission is continuing to push that, which is good. Try to bring all these different buckets of funding and programs like renewables and such more integrated. It's still the clarity that we can't use energy efficiency funds on incentives or any hardware type measures in any of those non-EE areas, but definitely clarifying that we need to be trying to push the marketing and comprehensiveness of all those efforts to customers. I think that's enough. Next slide, please. I'm a gas guy, so I didn't want to leave the electric utilities slighted here at all. I did want to point out that a big key piece for the electric utilities is a reduction of lighting CFL measures and a transition to LEDs and other newer lighting technologies. This, I think, will have a big impact not only on the portfolios, but how people access our portfolios, and certainly has had an issue on cost effectiveness. And I think a lot of you have supported lighting programs, so this will be a definite change to be dealing with. Next slide, please. The Commission also approved the third-party programs, some of which we will be coordinating with the local government partnerships and would be available to local governments potentially. They approved a process for how we're going to go out and do our bids and try to bring in the new programs. This is the, and I apologize, I can't recall what the acronym for IDEEA stands for. Can't remember at the moment, I apologize, but basically it's our bidding process to bring in new third parties. There was an emphasis on the MUSH market, municipal utility, university, schools, hospitals market. Again, you guys would fall in under the M. I believe most of you that are on the call here, so there may be some additional third-party programs because the Commission is pushing for more attention in this area. Next slide. Workforce education and training got a lot of attention. It's certainly been getting a lot of attention across the board. I think the key point here is the Commission is pushing or requiring, I should say, that we hire an expert to help us in this area. They want that done by May 1st of next year, and hopefully this will help bring all this stuff together that's been going on with all of the workforce education and training issues, which cut across many of the programs in addition to their own specific efforts. So I think this is a good idea. Hopefully that can get done sooner than later. I know I could use a lot of what I would hope that that entity would bring to the table. Next slide. Financing programs, this one I could speak to for a long time. So if I miss something, certainly we can handle it in the Q&A. At the high level, the decision approves the funds for our on-bill financing programs that the utilities run. It's approving the funds to implement for the pilots, not the specifics of the pilots that the consultants have been working on, but at least the funding that goes behind making all of that happen. And it also approved continued funding for the federal stimulus programs under the ARA effort. Specifically under that, it approved what we had submitted for the implementers, and we have to actually file, I think as part of our compliance filing, a little more specifics than we had given them, but pretty much everything that we had planned on moving forward with or have been funding in 2012, I should say, we'll continue moving forward with some additions actually for 2013. Something that will help us with the contracting process, they also gave us the ability to continue those existing ones until we get the contracts in place. So we won't see any stops and starts there, which is nice. I mentioned the pilot budgets are approved. I'm going to basically at this point, I'm just going to highlight what is a separate track, and I apologize, I don't have a slide for this. At the time the Commission issued the decision, they had concurrently issued a ruling, or the judge had issued a ruling on follow-up to the proposed pilots that the consultants that we hired submitted on October 2nd. We also had a workshop at that time. That ruling unfortunately didn't come out till right around, I believe, a week or so after this final decision was made. So we lost a little over, I don't know, about 6 weeks, 5 weeks, I guess. But basically, that ruling laid out the follow-up that will occur, that will be the specifics on what the commission decides to move forward with on the pilots, separate from the funding that was approved here. And in that ruling, I split it into two phases. The first phase was a series of questions to the gas company, who's me leading the consultants, primarily to the consultants. We completed that and submitted our answers last Friday. If you didn't get those because you're not on the service list, let me know. They may also be posted on the caleefinance.com website that the consultants have been managing. I suppose it's there. If not, I can certainly get it to folks through the LGC if that's helpful. The other part of the decision is for everybody here. Basically, it's for the rest of the state and parties to comment on a series of 20 questions that the judge had, as well as just an overall opportunity to comment on the pilot proposals from October 2nd. Those questions, opening comments are due December 14th. Reply comments are due December 21st. Presumably the follow-up at that point would be a draft decision that's issued sometime mid to late January, but it's not clear. If you look back to my slide here I don't have a page number on it, I apologize. No, I didn't mean to go, could you go back? Thank you. I guess it must be page 14. The decision actually delegated responsibility for following up on and ruling on the pilots to the assigned commissioner, which is Commissioner Farron. So it's possible that he may take a different tact than issuing a draft decision. It's really not clear, quite honestly, at this point. But the one thing in summary that is clear is the commission still has a very strong intent to have the pilots start rolling out at the beginning of the second quarter or into first quarter, however you define the date there, but around March 31st. And of course, that's what we're all diligently working on, preparing ourselves for between on-bill repayment and some of the financing hub details that were proposed in the pilot. Next slide. I already mentioned that the local governments and institutional partnership programs were approved, but I did want to highlight here that the IRUs are required to present contracts within 60 days of that decision. In some cases, that's a new contract. In some cases, that will be an addendum, and I know the gas company is working hard on getting there, and certainly with our effort with Edison, I know they are as well. So we hopefully will be able to get these handled and dealt with very quickly, and we can get them all signed in January and move on. Next slide. The last thing that I wanted to note here was that I mentioned this, but there's a compliance filing that we all have to do. They got funding in this decision. That's due on January 14th. Again, that 60-day requirement. We'll be filing advice letters, so you'll all be seeing what we're going to be submitting to say that we're in compliance with that final decision, including red line versions of all the implementation plans and updated cost effectiveness and budget tables. Next slide, which I think is the conclusion of my presentation. Again, it was a lot of stuff very quickly. I apologize if I went through anything too fast or I used any acronyms that might have confused folks, but anyway, that concludes my presentation. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Frank. We don't currently have any questions. I think people are probably digesting all that great information you just provided. We have had a number of additional people join on, so I just wanted to remind folks that if you want to ask a question, use the chat function under the questions box instead of raising your hand. We have too many people to unmute people and actually have people voice their questions. So we'll be summarizing questions through the question box at the end of each speaker's presentation. So if you have any questions for Frank, go ahead and put those in and we will take those later on in the webinar. So up next we have Jerry Lahr, Association of Bay Area Governments. He's the Energy Programs Manager there. manager of the ABAG Power Joint Powers Agency and manages the agency's energy efficiency initiatives such as the ABAG Energy Watch program, the ERA-funded Retrofit Bay Area and Better Buildings programs, and ABAG's Green Communities partnership with PG&E. So with that, I will turn it over to Jerry.
Thanks, Kate. As Kate mentioned, I'm the Energy Programs Manager here at the Association of Bay Area Governments. What I wanted to cover, we've got a pretty wide audience, so I thought I'd start with a background of ABAG, talk about how we moved into doing the Bay REN, and then some of the program elements of the Bay REN. So next slide. The Bay REN, San Francisco Bay Area Regional Energy Network, is our acronym of the Bay REN. But ABAG, Association of Bay Area Governments, we are the Regional Council of Governments for the San Francisco Bay Area, 9 counties that are shown there, and the 101 cities within those counties. ABAG's traditional or core function has been around land use planning, regional land use planning, and that's still the situation. A lot of work around that, including such things as the regional housing needs allocation, which I think maybe is the bane of our existence. All of our agencies seem to hate that process. But we're involved in other things. The sustainable community strategy has become a very big thing for our planning department, to do that in conjunction with, primarily with the Metropolitan Transportation Commission up here. But in addition to that, ABAG offers a lot of what we refer to as service programs, and those include things like an insurance program for local governments, a Bay Trails program. We have training classes that are specific for local governments. And then we offer energy programs, and that's what I deal with. Next slide. So here's some of the ABAG energy programs that we've been involved in over the years. It's not necessarily a complete list, but I think it's a good list of the major things that we've been involved in. Energy aggregation has been a big thing for us for a long time. We've run a natural gas aggregation program, it says there, since 1996, and we're still running that program. We ran an electric aggregation program of direct access, so similar to the CCA thing you hear about these days. During the early portion of the electric direct access, and we ended up suspending that program during the energy crisis, and at least so far have chosen not to re-up that program. We ran a local government energy partnership. That was a partnership program, ratepayer-funded program under PG&E during the early days of the partnerships, and that kind of morphed into the ABAG Energy Watch program when PG&E started branding their local government partnerships under that Energy Watch brand. Our primary focus under that program was local government facilities themselves. Since then, there have been a number of additional Energy Watch programs, in particular here in the Bay Area, that many of you may know. Most counties now have Energy Watch programs here in the Bay Area. And we actually no longer run that Energy Watch program because there are so many other ones. But we have continued partnership programs with PG&E under their ABAG, or under their Green Communities programs, which is another type of partnership program, and we've offered greenhouse gas emissions inventory assistance to local governments and benchmarking of local government facilities through that program. We've been involved in the Better Buildings program, which is a national program, but we have a statewide Better Buildings program, which is headed by LA County. So ABAG is a subcontractor to LA County under that program, and we have 4 sub-awardees underneath ABAG that are involved in that program. We've been involved in electric vehicle planning here recently. Have had a couple of contracts on that, and we have one continuing involved in installing electric vehicle charging equipment. And then the ARA-funded, what we refer to as the Retrofit Bay Area program, and this is our contract with the California Energy Commission, residential retrofit program that included 8 of our counties, in collaboration of 8 of our counties. And that is the program that really morphed into this regional energy network. next slide. I guess a little more background is there's local governments for some time now have been advocating for more authority, responsibility over energy efficiency programs. And I guess here's my plug for the LGSEC, the Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition. If you don't know of it, it's a good organization, advocacy for local governments, membership of the local governments. And they've been advocating for this for a while as well. And so earlier this year, that gained some traction at the Public Utilities Commission, and they ultimately authorized local governments to join together and submit proposals for regional energy networks, what they refer to as regional energy network pilots. And so we took this group that we had organized under our Retrofit Bay Area program and got it together and said, do we want to submit a proposal for one of these regional energy networks? And all the folks said, yes, we do. And then we had to decide what did we want to do for that proposal. And we ultimately came up with a fairly long list of things that we might want to do under that program, but had to narrow that down because we didn't think, at least here during this initial 2-year period, that we wanted to try to do everything. So this slide at the top just says what are we designed to do? Design and implement effective energy savings programs in the 9-county, what's the ABAG territory, the ABAG's 9-county Bay Area area. Gain some regional efficiencies through this network of local governments, build local capacity, and then significant to us is independence from the utilities, in our case PG&E. And the issue there is that these local government partnerships, while they've run good programs, they have been dominated by the utilities, and the utilities have been able to dictate the implementation and the program design around these programs. And like I said, the local governments have advocated for more of that authority and responsibility. And so that's what we got out of the decision, we feel. Our proposed activities, when we proposed them, we proposed a $41 million budget in these 4 main program areas: single-family retrofit program, multifamily retrofit program, a program around codes and standards, and financing for energy efficiency retrofits. Next slide. And this is just what we view as the sort of the organizational structure of it. So the Public Utilities Commission at the top retains formal oversight over all of this. And we would report to the Public Utilities Commission with regard to program design and implementation issues. They would have the ability to approve or disapprove, that sort of thing. The decision does say, as I think Frank alluded to, that the utilities would have fiscal management responsibilities. The Public Utilities Commission said that they did not or could not be the contracting entity. So the contract for us will be with PG&E for fiscal management purposes. But like I said, the approval of program design and implementation would be up through the Public Utilities Commission. And then you see the 9 counties that are underneath the ABAG program. Next slide. So just timeline, and Frank talked about this. We submitted our proposal on July 16th. The proposed decision was released on October 9th, and certainly a lot of work in between those 2 dates of comments and reply comments and data proposals and that sort of thing, responses to data requests and that. We received the final decision on November 8th, and I'll just talk through a little bit more what our program was about, but I have here a list of our member agencies. So in the previous slide, the program structure, I just said the 9 counties. In our case, it's the intent of ABAG to have the structure underneath us of those 9 counties, and we intend to sign, or are in the process of signing, a memorandum of understanding with those 9 counties for a decision structure around this Bay REN. In most cases, for us, that entity underneath ABAG is the actual county itself, but in some cases, it's an entity within another entity within that county. So, for instance, here in Alameda County, right now, that entity that we're dealing with, it says stopwaste.org here, which is the informal name of the Alameda County Waste Management Authority. So that agency within Alameda County is the organizing entity within that county. Likewise, in Sonoma County, they have an organization, the Sonoma County Regional Climate Protection Authority, and that's the lead organization for that county. In any case, these agencies are responsible for the coordination of all the other entities within that county and with the cities within that county. Next slide. So just briefly going through what our program elements are. I don't want to get down into, I guess, great detail here, but again, we see the final decision on November 9th. As Frank mentioned, we have 60 days to get under contract, and we're involved in those discussions right now. Our program elements, we were approved for $26.6 million. The single-family retrofit program was cut in half from 18 to 9 million, and the sub-program elements there, we have a flex program incentive element, which was modeled after what they were doing down in LA County, will be implemented under the Energy Upgrade California brand, as all these programs will. But LA County's had a successful flex program down there, and our program is very similar to that. But also, our single-family program also includes a home energy advisor, so a sort of a technical assistance for single-family entities that anticipate getting a energy efficiency retrofit, and then marketing and outreach around that. Similarly, our multifamily program approved at $7.3 million. It has a bundled measure, what we're referring to as bundled measure incentives, but it's sort of similar to the flex package in that a multifamily building owner would pick a set of at least 2 measures to get at least 10% savings in that program, and then incentives around that. And then we have customized technical assistance to, again, help walk these building owners through the program and give them assistance. I mean, if there are other programs out there that they could take advantage of, then we would help them with that as well. And again, marketing and outreach underneath that program. Next slide. And so the codes and standards, program element 3.4 million. Our intent there is to initially establish a code compliance baseline. In other words, what is the actual compliance of codes within our region and each of the subregions, each of the counties, and then develop compliance metrics around that baseline and target training for local government officials and code officials. And then the financing element, 6.9 million. The specific elements underneath that were approved. So they approved our single-family loan loss reserve, a multifamily capital advance, so a multifamily essentially loan program for multifamily building owners. Commercial PACE, they approved some funding for that. The funding was that was approved was just around the marketing and administration of the commercial PACE, really to coordinate with the California First program there. And then the final element, the PAYS program, Water Efficiency Pilot, that's a program that is currently being piloted up in Sonoma County, which is an on-water bill financing program that, again, they're piloting right now under the Better Buildings program up there, and our intent is to expand that somewhat. We don't have enough funding to expand that region-wide, but we would look at it, probably a couple of other areas to expand that to and try to prove out that concept. Next slide. So some issues that have come up, so really coordination issues for us. Certainly local government partnerships. The local government partnerships, again, as Frank mentioned, are continuing, and we advocated on that behalf that the local government partnerships should continue. And as I mentioned, there are a number of local government partnerships here in the Bay Area, generally operated by the counties, well, sometimes by the counties, sometimes, for instance, in our East Bay here, Alameda Contra Costa County, it's actually operated by a private entity. But we need to be able to coordinate with those. And so in our case, we have told the individual counties themselves, so these county lead agencies, that they are responsible for organizing and coordinating with those local government partnerships in their area. And so far, we've had success with that. Certainly, our intent is not to be duplicating any effort that the local government partnerships are undertaking. And we feel like we're doing that so far, but obviously we need to keep coordinating with them. I think Frank again mentioned that REN Energy Authority was approved, and they're one of our 9 counties. They were able to submit a separate proposal just due to the fact of their community choice aggregation status. So they applied for that funding and received that funding. And again, that's just another area of coordination for us. We did coordinate with them when we were putting our proposal together to make sure we weren't duplicating efforts. But likewise, that'll be an ongoing set of coordination that we have to accomplish with them. And they have a member on our steering committee, coordinating committee, so I don't see a problem there. And then obviously continuing to coordinate with PG&E, and some of that coordination is sort of mandated essentially by the decision, in particular with regard to the single family program element, where they've said that we need to coordinate, both us and the SoCalREN, we need to coordinate with all of the IOUs around the single family program element, what we're calling the flex package up here, and they're working on a revised basic package, and we need to coordinate that, and those discussions are ongoing. So I think that's it. I don't know if there's another slide there. I think maybe I didn't put my contact information up there, but Kate's got that and can send that around to the group.
Great, thanks, Jerry. We do have one question. Somebody's looking for more information on flex package incentives.
So this is, again, this is an ongoing discussion. The idea behind the flex package is that there is a list of measures, and those each individual measure has so many points, and you pick the measures that add up to a minimum number of points, and what we're thinking is 100 points, and that 100 points approximately equates to a 10% savings. And if you get that minimum level, you get a $1,000 incentive, and that's the incentives will be tiered. So if you add on more points, you get 200 points, or approximately this 20% savings level, then you would get a $2,000 incentive. These incentives will be capped at some point, and that cap is one of the things that's under discussion. It'll probably be capped at something around the $2,500 to, well, I'd say between $2,500 and $3,500.
Great. We had another question come in about the bundled measure incentive for multifamily. Can you expand on that?
Again, similar to the flex package, there will be a list of measures, and the idea is that you pick, in that case, at least 2 measures to get up to a 10% savings. And that list of measures is in a little bit of flux there. And then once you've done that, then you'll be eligible for the incentive level.
Great, thanks, Jerry. If folks have any other questions, go ahead and send those in, and we'll get back. We can open up the questions to all the speakers at the end. Up next, we have Howard Choi, who is the General Manager for the Los Angeles County Office of Sustainability. The County Office of Sustainability provides leadership on energy and climate change legislation and policy, as well as implementing environmental and sustainability programs and services for county departments and the public. So with that, I will turn it over to Howard.
Okay, thanks, Kate. Just real quickly on LA County Office of Sustainability, that organization includes the energy management function that takes care of all of the county buildings and implements projects in county buildings, pays the bills, does some other neat things. We operate some cogeneration plants. And then through the advent of PACE and the ERA grants, we created another organization to implement community energy programs. And between the two of them, they constitute Office of Sustainability. Well, I'll tell you, just one quick note for local governments. We have found it really advantageous to have both of those functions under a single manager. It really helps when you're looking at energy issues, legislative issues, regulatory stuff, policy, to have a place where both of those functions can be organized. So the SoCalREN really grew out of the programs that LA County developed on behalf of county unincorporated area and all our cities using the ERA dollars. Our formula grant, most of our formula grant went into programs to support Energy Upgrade California, and then we received a state CEC grant, competitive grant, and a federal DOE Better Buildings grant, again for the benefit of the county and its cities. You can go to the next slide. Oh, this has been covered by Jerry about why we were pushing for regional networks, so you can go to the next slide. Jerry did a good job of describing the regulatory position on the regional networks. I'll just mention one other thing that was in the final decision on regional networks, and I'll just read from it. The vision for RENs is that they are regional, which in the context of defining a REN means that they represent several local government entities and not just one or two. The basic idea is that each REN be able to represent a large group of customers with similar characteristics by geography or demography at a minimum. And the Commission also mentioned that the Bay REN and the SoCalREN were pilots for 13-14 with the possibility of expanding the program in 15. And they even suggested some regions where regional networks made logical sense, but I will leave it to you to go through the decision to see that the regions that the PUC had in mind. So I should say there on the slide that's up there now, those dollar figures, that's what we asked for in our proposal. We ended up getting $45 million total, so we can get that fixed. I guess it just shows you our audacity in terms of what we felt we could ask for. Oh, and the other big part of our regional network proposal was that these programs that were originated by LA County for county and our cities where it made sense, we would expand them to all of Edison and gas company service territory. So we are right now working with Edison Gas Company to determine which of these programs should be expanded and where. So you can go to the next slide. I'll talk a little bit about the programs. So we ran with ERA dollars a piece of the statewide Energy Upgrade California program. Again, forget the numbers there, but you see FlexPath there, which was our own designed whole home incentive program. We're working with Edison and the gas company to modify that and potentially get to a single program that would be offered at least territory-wide. You could see the other elements that we would implement under the SoCalREN Energy Upgrade California. And again, just keep in mind that potentially some of these programs would be available to jurisdictions that are outside of LA County but in gas company Edison service territory, likely the joint service territory. And we will be looking to work with jurisdictions, partnerships, COGs, JPAs. I didn't talk about governance. Let me digress and talk a little bit about SoCalREN governance. These programs are all up and running already, designed by LA County and our consultant team using ERA dollars. They continue to run because actually all 3 of our grants haven't terminated yet. So in some respects, they're still running. So part of our REN proposal was to propose a governance committee that would sort of guide the operation of these programs, not necessarily work with the utilities or work with the PUC. That would be LA County's role. But certainly we will form a governance committee that needs to be representative of every jurisdiction within the Edison Gas Company territory. So at some point you will be hearing from us about ideas or some information about that governance committee. So all of these programs that you're seeing here could potentially be in your communities if you're in Edison Gas Company territory. Go ahead, next slide. We developed some financing programs. We have a financing program for public agency buildings using private capital. Later on, I'll tell you a website where you can go find out about it. We competitively selected 3 lenders who were willing to create a really good financing package for local governments, an easy to access and easy to use financing product. We have a private residential financing product, which right now you can get for your property owners. Your residential property owners can get a 499 5-year unsecured loan to do an energy upgrade package, and we're looking potentially to expand what can be financed under that. And our lender is licensed to operate statewide, so we can easily expand that program to other jurisdictions. We're developing a multifamily loan loss reserve financing program. That's what LLR stands for, loan loss reserve, which is basically using ratepayer funding as collateral or collateral to make up for defaulted loans. We want to promote the concept of revolving loan funds for public agencies. And then we've got funding to promote non-residential PACE. And that funding is not just for LA County PACE, it's for the Southern California region. So if somebody is a PACE administrator in Edison Gas Company territory or moving forward on a PACE program, there could be some funds available out of that pot to help you create a PACE program or join a PACE program. Again, these financing programs, after discussions with the utilities, will determine if they're going to be, how they'll be eligible or available in other jurisdictions. Go ahead, next slide. And then we have Southern California Regional Energy Center, which, as you can see, offers technical support to local governments, whether you're a local government partner or not a partner. And you can see the types of services that are provided. And I think this is a really cool concept. It's actually something we've been looking at for a long time. And it's actually in existence now. I'm going to give you a website if you want to go find out a lot of information about what's available now, www.SoCalRec.com. And you can find out about everything that we're doing right now. We're helping jurisdictions implement projects in municipal facilities where they don't have the full set of resources to be able to do it on their own. So next slide. So that is the backbone of our programs. And I wanted to, Kate mentioned that I would be talking about other opportunities. And this is really timely because, as you all know, Prop 39 passed. And I've directly lifted some language out of the proposition language that talks about what this funding is supposed to do, and it prominently mentions other public buildings and facilities to leverage existing energy efficiency and clean energy programs. As you can see, there will be assistance for public-private partnerships, and they identified PACE specifically. Project selection and oversight shall be managed by existing state and local government agencies with expertise in managing energy projects and programs. Funds appropriated to agencies with expertise. I would propose that a regional energy network is an ideal entity to access Prop 39 funds and get them out into the communities quickly to make projects happen. And I would also say that a regional energy network for the purposes of Prop 39 does not have to be a regional energy network as acknowledged by the PUC. So much as I would like the SoCal REN to get every single dollar available, this is, in my opinion, a great opportunity for other groups of local governments, as defined by the PUC, that maybe can organize themselves to cover a region and go after some of this Prop 39 money. Oh, and lo and behold, if you do that, maybe now you've got a working regional energy network that might be eligible for funds in the next PUC energy efficiency cycle. Next slide. Oh, and there's other funds available for reading the bottom dash or the bottom line first, for funding for programs implemented by local and regional agencies, local and regional collaboratives. AB 1532 is the legislation that would allocate cap and trade allocation revenues to local governments and other entities for greenhouse gas reductions. So there are really, now is a good time. There are really good opportunities for local governments that have been doing good work to access funds to keep that good work going. You can go to my next and final slide. Now, how are we going to access those funds? And I would venture that even Frank would admit that if the SoCal REN can access other funds from the state, whether it's Prop 39 or cap and trade or other grant opportunities, to augment the infrastructure that we're putting in place to drive people to IOU incentives, that would be a good thing. And I think it would be a good thing too. So we'd clearly be in agreement there that if regional networks can access more funds to make these programs operating under PUC more successful, we all benefit. The problem is Prop 39 cap and trade monies, the legislature and regulatory entities will determine how to dole out that money. As a matter of fact, in Prop 39, there's already 2 bills introduced that propose how to get Prop 39 funding out to public agencies. It's focused on schools right now, but there's a long time to go still. So Jerry mentioned LGSEC, Local Government Sustainable Energy Coalition. And I happen to be the board chair of that. I am going to propose to the LGSEC board that the LGSEC take the role of trying to work with the jurisdictions up and down the state, cities and counties, and formulate a strategy and some recommendations to governor's office, regulators, other folks. LGSEC cannot lobby on legislation, so we'll stay away from that. But we'll try to formulate a strategy to propose how this money can go out effectively, as opposed to these entities being bombarded with requests from 350 cities and 50 counties and Lord knows whoever else. I think this effort needs to be organized, and LGSEC is an entity that was created. We've accomplished some good things, as Jerry has mentioned. We were created for these types of efforts, and at the LGSEC quarterly meeting, which is open to the public, we will be discussing regional energy networks, next step for regional energy networks, how to capitalize on Prop 39 cap and trade money. And that's January 10th in San Diego, and I believe our quarterly meetings are open to the local government public, whether you're a member or not, and I would encourage you to come. So I am finished now, and we'll leave the rest of the time for questions. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Howard, and we do have a number of questions for you. Starting with the first, can Howard let us know when he needs to know if a local government wants to participate in the Southern California REN?
So most of our programs are pretty much voluntary. They will be provided, they'll be rolled out in your jurisdiction, and it will just be a question of whether you want to, if you're representing private sector, your communities, there may be a role for local governments to work with us to help promote the program. If it's a public building retrofit, you're interested in the SoCalREC, there's the website, and there's a way to contact people if you want to participate in the financing or the technical support.
Great. The next question has to do with Prop 39 funding. Will PACE programs be limited to one program administrator, or will it be available for all program administrators in California?
Well, I'm sure the proposition language didn't designate that, so the enabling legislative language will have to determine that, and that's where somebody providing a recommendation for that or not for that will, that's how it'll get played out.
Thanks, Howard. And then lastly for you, and then we have a couple questions for Jerry, and if folks have anything else, please go ahead and send those in. One of the participants is hoping to hear a little bit more about smart tech behavior, about the smart tech behavior pilot and the proposed community development work.
So the behavioral piece of our proposal was actually not funded, so we can forget about that for now. But I think the utilities are going to be rolling out or piloting a behavioral program. And the community development piece, it's through the county public housing agency, and that is designed to get the low-income residential rehabilitation contractors to start implementing whole house upgrades on those projects instead of just doing selective measures. So that's our attempt to integrate whole house into low-income residential rehabilitation. And our county public housing agency works with multiple cities, but of course only in LA County.
Okay, and another one came in, not sure if you want to weigh in on this or not. What's the latest on a REN for the Central Coast, Ventura, Santa Barbara, and San Luis Obispo counties?
Well, so I know that an informal regional network is it's not informal. There will be a small R, small E, small N regional network in the Tri-Coast that is being led by Santa Barbara County, who received funding from the IOUs to roll out the residential private financing program, Empower SBC, to their neighboring counties, and also be the central marketing and promoting arm of Energy Upgrade California in those regions. It's being done under IOU contract, though. It's not a capital REN regional network.
Okay, another question came in. How about a REN for the Central Valley? That was something I know that the PUC commented on. I don't know, Howard, if you want to add anything to that.
I'm all for it. I mean, it's not obviously for me to say where a REN should exist. So go read the decision, and maybe Kate can provide a link to it for everybody. See what the commission said about RENs, And, you know, as I indicated and Jerry indicated, and as history indicates, it's not always easy for jurisdictions to get together and decide to work together. So that's the challenge.
Okay, we have a couple of questions. I'm going to go ahead and unmute Jerry, and I'll leave you unmuted as well, Howard, if you want to jump in. Jerry, a couple questions for you. Does the Regional Energy Network replace Energy Watch programming with the territory or operate side by side with it? Within the territory or operate side by side?
They operate side by side. So ABAG, or the Bay REN, it operates in ABAG territory, which is a 9-county territory. And then, like I mentioned, most of our counties also have Energy Watch programs. So there's a San Francisco Energy Watch. There's an East Bay Energy Watch, which is Alameda and Contra Costa. There's a San Mateo County Energy Watch. There's a Silicon Valley Energy Watch for Santa Clara. So all these other counties have their Energy Watch programs, and those will continue to operate. They were fully funded. So yeah, these programs operate side by side.
And is the multi-family incentive per unit?
The incentive under multifamily is, we have it set right now as $1,000 per unit. So the building would get the incentive of essentially $1,000 per unit.
Great, thanks. Another question came in, how can a community develop its own community NRG company, such as Solar NRG Company? Is there support?
I don't know that organization.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can answer that.
Okay, if the participant wants to clarify a little bit, go ahead and send through the question box. I'm not quite sure what they're referring to either. That's the last question we have. If there are any other questions, please go ahead and send them in right away. Other than that, you have all of our speakers' emails up if you want to follow up with them. We'll try and get all those links to you, and we have a number of resources from the webinar, the slides, and some other backup documentation on the Southern California REN for folks that are interested, and we can put the PUC decision up there as well. So thanks to all of our speakers for sharing with us today, and thanks to everyone who tuned in to the webinar. We have a lot of exciting opportunities to further the great work of local governments in 2013 and beyond. And on behalf of LGC and the SEEC partnership, we look forward to supporting you in any way we can as you continue your great work. So please take a few minutes as you exit the webinar to fill out the survey. We will be offering a number of events over the next 2 years, and your input will help us to assure that they cover the topics you are interested in. That concludes our webinar today. Thank you for participating.
The organizer has ended the session.